Welcome to a video about your sciatic nerve. Sciatic nerve or sciatica is a broad term used to describe pretty much most generalized leg pain that we feel is being referred from the central nervous system or spine. If you look at this snapshot I've put up, which I'd got from Body World's exhibition, full disclosure, this is actually a real human nervous system with the bones, the muscles, all the connective tissues stripped back. If you haven't ever been to the Body Worlds or Body Works exhibition, please go. It's an amazing German fellow who has developed a technique for embalming, stripping. He creates these amazing sculptures from human anatomy, and I think the feedback by listening to people watching the exhibition was just their awe at the anatomy of the human body and what we're all walking around in and not appreciating. This particular image, I think, really helps show the sciatic nerve, and it helps you see that it's not one nerve. I think it highlights that. It's actually a trunk where five nerve roots come together to form a big, thick nerve highway, I guess we can say, about 2 centimeters thick. But there is variance within all of us, which we must remember with anatomy. This is one person's anatomy, and whilst there are generalized consistencies, there are often people who have anatomical variations of the norm. And we must always remember this when assessing and when reading scans. The interesting thing about the sciatic nerve is that it carries both motor and sensory fibers. So when it's affected with compression or distraction, it can give you numb feelings or feelings on the surface of your skin, like burning, tingling. They're what we call sensory sensations. The other issue, though, is that it carries motor fibers, and motor fibers are required to keep signaling to our muscles. So when it's compressed and when the nerve is under pressure, we can lose motor strength in muscles down river. So we get muscle weakness and we can get sensory changes. And anyone who has ever lived with sciatica for a long period of time will have amazing stories about their sciatica. They're never pleasant. And unfortunately, I believe there's many people living with sciatica who really don't need to be. And here's why I say that. If you look at this nerve structure, you can see that it's all interconnected. So if I go up to the top of that nervous bundle and I pull upwards, I'm going to tension the sciatic nerve that's below. Likewise, if I pull those nerves around lower, around the knee, I pull them down, I'm going to tension the sciatic nerve. If I have a little disc protrusion right up in where those major nerve roots exit, I'm going to create a little bit of tension in that zone, which is going to have a radiating effect down the leg. But if you think of the nervous tissue like string, and if we can keep the string loose or able to be moving up, down, left, right, in a spiral clockwise and in a spiral anti-clockwise, then we are keeping our options open, which means even if we develop a little bit of compression in one area, the rest of the nervous tissue has scope to accept that restriction because the whole system is dynamic. And we talk about neural dynamics, which is the ability of the whole nervous system to move freely through the connective tissues it finds itself embedded in. And that's where fascial hydration, that's where optimal joint mechanics, that's where skeletal alignment really comes into play. The system, even things like there's two suboccipital muscles that blend with the dura mater, which is the lining of the spinal cord. Even tensions higher up at the base of our neck can pull upwards that whole nervous system, and that can pre-tension your sciatic nerve. It can be like a taut rope, which means whenever anything just lightly presses it, you're going to have a reaction to that. If the system is a bit slacker and there's pressure into it, there's less local reaction. It's mechanics, and it makes sense when we don't just look at the focal tissue and put all our energy into that one zone where it's getting impinged or compressed. Sciatic nerve tension is a reflection of what's going on in the whole system. Sure, there may be a local compression, but there's things we can do about that if we look at the whole system. Even things like whether your foot is facing out or facing in will have a huge sort of tensioning impact on that whole nervous trunk that runs through your butt right down into your leg. When you look at a body, you can see where the body is tensioned, and it's very unique to everybody. And it takes someone looking at you to give you clues on how to unwind the system. What I don't like, and when the system, when the sciatic trunk and bundles are already under tension, is that we tension them more with stretching. Often we might get a short-term relief, but then we make that fragile nervous tissue far more sensitized and irritated because it's already under tension. And when we pull it tighter, we are just stirring up a system that actually needs to be detensioned rather than tensioned. So this is where when we're just going for random stretches off YouTube and we're just doing everything we can to try and make ourselves feel better, we really need to run it by our own internal sense of, did this harm or has this helped? And always think about short-term impact versus delayed onset impact. Do one thing and then just sit with the sensations, sit with the information your body offers back about, was that useful for me in my situation, in my pain state today? Often patients report that they do the stretching, it feels good for 5 minutes, but then about 30 minutes later, they have a really amplified pain reaction. And to me, that would indicate that for this person, the stretches they tried were not helpful. I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some ideas. And I hope that just educates you a little bit about this amazing nervous structure. This picture, I think you can see the nerves radiating out around in the intercostal space around our ribs. They radiate out into our lats, our big trunk muscles. Then we've got the actual sort of really strong nerve roots which exit between each vertebrae that then come through that piriformis muscle into our butt. But then look at it's like a big tree branch, tree roots just spreading out in all different directions through your body. I guess when I look at that, what I realize, what it reinforces to me is that everything in the body is connected. I say that time and time again, not just structurally, as this picture shows, but if you think about those nerves and what they're being flooded with through our venous system, whether they're getting happy healing hormones or stressful toxifying inflammatory hormones. So not just from a mechanical perspective, but think about the fluid those nerves are bathing in and whether our emotions are impacting that fluid in a positive way. And what triggers those emotions is often the thoughts in our head. So from every level, everything is connected. And I guess that's my invitation, and the point I wish to keep drumming home is that if you are currently dealing with your back pain from a purely mechanical model, you're looking at this and you're going, oh, I need to do this, this, and this to unload that particular catch point, that is a good place to start. But if it's been a chronic, ongoing issue for many, many months, then I would suggest exploring the thought patterns and the emotions which are feeding the nutrition to that nerve from every angle, may be the missing part that will get you there. And for that, just simply visit www.bulletproofbacks.com and you'll find plenty of affordable options that may just be the catalyst to explore your pain from another angle. Good luck on your journey. Drop us an email, hello@bulletproofbacks.com. I'm always interested in your comments, your feedbacks, and yeah, feel free to share your sciatic nerve stories below. Please make them uplifting. I don't want to hear the bad ones, although I know they exist, but always share what you've got that may help other listeners. That's what this platform's all about, helping all of us move forward with back pain in a more empowering way rather than a depressing, fear-inducing way. That's all for now. Bye.